you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Oh, good morning. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. It was a long night, wasn't it? And thank you for joining our election analysis yesterday. Thank you for coming back this morning after probably being up half the night with us for the post-election analysis. All right, so which we will give in a second. Bottom line is here, Glenn Younkin is the new governor of Virginia, the governor-elect of Virginia. He defeated Terry Mcauliffe, as I told you he would hours before the networks called it. Decision Desk was right to lean into that, and frankly, it was a little bit ridiculous. Moving on, New Jersey. Whoa, way closer than it should have been, way closer than anybody thought it should have been. Let this be a lesson to the Republican Governors Association and Ronna Romney McDaniel. You should have backed that man in this race. If you see movement nationwide, especially in New Jersey, with a state that does have a significant working class population, then you should get into it. Don't ever allow political pundits in Washington, D.C. to tell you what is and what is not competitive.
You've been saying this forever.
2 months ago, I told you that race was competitive. 2 months ago. But again, let this be a lesson to you. I fully do expect Murphy to eke out New Jersey. I understand that some people, really wanted, that race to turn out a different way. But the fact of the matter is Murphy did have an edge. We knew there were a lot of absentee ballots remaining, and not just how many there were, but where they were. Okay, and that really matters. Now, I could show you New Jersey in the voter file. It doesn't mean that something crazy can't happen. I just don't see how Jack Citarelli reclaims that lead. New Jersey has a long history of tossing out incumbent Democrats with scandals. They just didn't make it. New Jersey, not just New Jersey Republicans, they've been in shambles for a long time. national Republicans, the Republican Governors Association, again, didn't help Citarelli. Ronna McDaniel didn't help him. He did that all by himself. He ran a grassroots campaign, a marvelous campaign. I got to be honest with you. The man's a national figure now. If you make New Jersey that close, you damn well better include him in whatever message you have moving forward. What does he and Glenn Younkin, and Donald Trump for that matter, all have in common? They're not politicians.
They're in touch.
They're businessmen who are in touch, which is what we're going to talk about today when we run 2 clips of the candidates in Virginia. All right? They have something in common, which is that they were in touch with the electorate while Democrats were not. New Jersey is just an incredibly Democratic-leaning state, so it would take a lot more to push it over the edge. Honestly, looking at the results, Jack needed a modest shove. Modest support. Not even a shove, because he was moving forward on his own. He needed a modest boost. Just somebody to give him a little bit of a leg up. And he didn't, because Republicans are stupid. For the most part. They don't understand that you can win races, especially in environments like this, that were previously thought unwinnable. And we'll talk about what that means. In fact, going forward, what this means. But the bottom line is, folks, let's take California 16, which I've been talking about for a while now. Costa is in deep trouble. David Giglio can beat Jim Costa. After the results we saw last night, there is without a doubt. I told you 10, 15-point swings are nothing in years when the incumbent party is in trouble. Costa may have won that district by upwards of 20 points, but Joe Biden did not. Donald Trump did very well. That district's going to be redrawn, and they may actually lose some Democrat, not may actually. The lines we're looking at right now indicate a loss of several points in the Democratic advantage. Jim Costa may not even hang around long enough to face defeat. He may want to spare himself the embarrassment of a defeat. This is a big deal. The reaction, before I get into some of the numbers, I got to just make a comment on this. The reaction last night and this morning is frankly racist. There are a lot of people showing their inner racist tonight. From MSNBC to CNN, I heard, what's her name? Crystal, what's her name?
Oh, Crystal Knight.
Crystal Knight on Newsmax say, well, all of this, what you're really just seeing is the media licking their wounds. The media doesn't have wounds to lick, right? The media is not a political party. So we're all supposed to sit here and take abuse from these people to be smeared by these people so they can cry in the corner like a little baby? That's what Crystal Knight expects the country to tolerate? Jameel Hill is a racist. And I could keep going down the line, but you know what? You got to give credit where credit's due. Van Jones decided last night to make a stop by CNN and tell them all they're freaking delusional.
Yep.
You lost because you're out of touch. You're arrogant, he told them. That's what, in case you missed that, you really should go back. I didn't load up the clip, but you should really go back and listen to Van Jones. God bless him. By the way, I met Van Jones once, and he's not a bad guy. He was there to talk about criminal justice reform with, guess what, Republicans. When Donald Trump was president, he was absolutely willing to work with it. But he had to stop by CNN last night and tell them all what a bunch of whiny, arrogant, elitist losers they are. Republicans should cheer this, however. Republicans should, by all means, continue calling white women racist. Knock yourself out. White women, which we have trending on Twitter, pound.
Yep.
We do. White women are now, and quickly became under Donald Trump, the most abused demographic in the electorate, abused by our political discourse. In 2016, they were stupid, backward, racist women subjugated by their husbands, and forced to vote their husbands, their white husbands, hyper-masculine husbands want them to vote. Then Democrats decided we can't win them on the issues. So let's launch. And by the way, this was intentional. There are memos. Democratic activists did this on purpose, and the media helped them. Fox News helped them. They targeted them with what I can only describe as the biggest social desirability bias shame campaign in the history of elections and politics in general, because it's never been done on a scale like that before. And it wasn't, oh, we have your best interests at heart. It was, you are a bad person if you vote for Donald Trump. If you vote Republican, you're a bad person. And by 2018, that really didn't even take yet. That's not why women swung to Democrats in 2018. The issue was healthcare. And Republicans, you're going to see a parallel here, follow me. Republicans thought that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act would be enough, an achievement, that it would somehow be something they can tout to beat back the tide of history, to basically supplant them listening to the issues that voters were saying mattered most to them. And back then, that was healthcare. Republicans broke a 7-year promise to replace Obamacare with something that protected pre-existing conditions and offered benefits, obviously the things that are unique to women. They didn't listen to them. John McCain, that spiteful, crusty old man, put his thumbs down because he sacrificed his promise to his voters in Arizona for a personal beef he had with Donald Trump. Just like Meghan McCain is out there today saying, we can win without Donald Trump. Who's this we, Meghan? You voted for Joe Biden.
Your dad.
What is this we? You voted for Joe Biden because, like your daddy, you're a spiteful little baby who chose your personal beef over your principles. We're here right now because of that. So I don't know where this we is.
She still thinks she's on stage with her daddy next to her.
I mean, this is
where
cost
it's at.
Republicans, your family cost Republicans the House of Representatives in 2018. Democrats, their victories in 2018 were less than average. Their House gain was average by post-World War II standards. Around 30, 35 seats is average. The Senate was the worst showing for the Democrats or any out-of-power party for a first-term incumbent midterm since JFK had to defend in 1962.
Mm-hmm.
If McSally would have held on against Kirsten Sinema, you would have had to gone back to FDR and the New Deal. That was not a blue wave. White women hadn't succumbed to the social bias campaign at that point. Fast forward to 2020, throughout 2 years, constantly being told by the media, at Tupperware parties, at events, you're a bad person. Not that Democrats are going to make your life any better, because they sure as hell don't think so, do they? But that you're a bad person if you put your pocketbook over your principles.
Oh, what?
You're a bad person if you put your family over your faith.
Preach it.
And then they did. They bought it. Or at least enough of them bought it. And you know how I feel about 2020, guys. You know what I feel about that election. But no matter what we talk about with shenanigans, Donald Trump did not win the state of Virginia. That is too many votes. You can't, even with the old school Bob Beckel tricks, you cannot account for those kinds of margins. He would have probably been closer if there was no COVID vote by mail, anything goes scenario. Of course it would have been, but he would not have carried Virginia. Very clearly last night in the exit polls, attitudinal factors matter. Donald Trump, honestly, yes, Glenn Younkin could not have won without Donald Trump's base. But Donald Trump could learn a valuable lesson from last night himself, if he intends to run for president in 2024.
Yes.
And that is, park the stuff that causes the seasick voter. I don't even know where it came from. I've known of Donald Trump for decades. I'm a Northeasterner. Everybody knows Donald Trump. And the man who ran for president and the man who served as president, the way he reacted is not the Donald Trump. Maybe because he wasn't under so much media scrutiny and they loved him, but he was a calm, very reassuring guy, and he's always confident. But he needed to be the guy who held the head of the seasick voters while they vomited over the side of the boat, which was rocking because the media and the political establishment did it on purpose.
More finesse.
They wanted to create constant crisis and turmoil because they wanted to rock the boat and create seasick voters. And Donald Trump learned a lesson from last night. Conduct yourself differently and hold their head instead of continuing to make them nauseous. And I say that with all affinity to the former president, if for no other reason, or all affection for him, if for no other reason other than this. He is the only president I remember to keep his promises the way he did.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you can't expect everybody to look at that big picture, and in fact, they did not. And there was a lot of voter remorse in the electorate in Virginia yesterday. A lot of voter remorse. And I do just want to say this before we get back into it. I have to, because I meant to open the show like this.
Yeah.
I just want to thank the locals community.
Oh, yes.
Everybody, but really the locals community, you guys signing up allowed us to go back into Virginia after we polled for Creative Destruction Media. And it's not just, maybe there'll be one or two other polls that come a little bit closer to the top margin, but there's more to being accurate than the overall margin. And that's the damn truth. Folks, look at the electorate we projected.
Yes. It's beautiful.
It's perfect. D+1, 31% independent.
Mm-hmm.
We were off on conservative by ideology by 1 point with conservatives. Everything else, immaculate. Our age break was, as it turns out, 18 to 29 was a little bit less. But our vote margins showing that 18 to 24 was actually more pro-Younkin than 25 to 29. The minutia of it all. I am so proud of the work we did in this race. It doesn't get much better than that, guys. We nailed that crap together.
And we also forced their narrative speaking.
Listen,
polls.
and when you have, when you have an alternative to go to, and that alternative consistently gives more transparency and better product, eventually, if you're them, you have to come to grips. And believe you me when I tell you, and it's not just us, you got to give hat tips to other people out there, Matt and Robert. If it wasn't for people like us, you would have saw the Mcauliffe plus Evans all the way down to the end. Maybe it would have tightened. Not quite like, Mcauliffe versus Cuccinelli. Maybe it would have tightened to like a Mcauliffe plus 2 to 4. Laura's over here rolling her eyes saying, it would have been maybe a little bit tighter. But we have forced these people to be more honest. But nevertheless, I'm super proud of what we did because we were right about the electorate and they were wrong. And their Mcauliffe plus ones were based on a very, I don't want to say phony, a very faulty projection of the electorate. We put out what we put out. We put it out with context. We put it out with transparency. And we did a better job again. Again.
Because why? Thank you for all your support.
If it wasn't for your support, we would not have been able to go back into the field. I cannot afford to, out of pocket, conduct polling like that, tracking within the last 2 weeks of an election. It's expensive. And the locals community has grown so much. I thought, you know what? They deserve it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
A little present.
And I thank, Todd over at Creative Destruction for sponsoring that first poll, which showed a dead heat at 47. But it also did show, which we talked about, Mcauliffe had a ceiling and Younkin had momentum, which is why I was like, itching, got to get back in there. Let's do it with the locals page. Let's do it with the locals community because I could see it. By the way, the margin with independents, that is that 0.6% right now. That's that margin with independents. It's just a little bit more in our poll than what the exit polls show. And I think that's probably right. It's probably going to wind up winning them by about 10. That's the difference between 10 and 12. But the electorate, dead on. D+1, 31% independent. Age break, almost perfect. By region, almost perfect. I told you it would be a little bit more mountain. And for context, the mountain range has been 20% of the vote for like 15 years. So to take a gamble, it wasn't even a gamble. It's what they told me it was gonna, what voters said would happen, and put the mountain vote a little bit higher this time. And how well he was doing in Central Virginia, how well he was doing in Hampton Roads. By he, I mean Younkin. This is me applauding you. I'm serious.
Because you are the people.
And you
we
drove
were able
that.
To represent
You.
you.
All we're doing is representing it. That's it. And trying to do the best job we can while we do it. So you guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. All right. Very little differential between and this matters. It was a statewide sweep. Republicans look like they will get like maybe a 1 vote majority in the House of Delegates, which is a big deal. They lost they lost 10. House Delegate seat 10, which was razor close. It's funny how these things work. I said it last night. We thought 10 was on the top of the list, maybe within top 5 that would flip. And then there were others that flipped that we thought would be harder to flip. But we saw crazy stuff. Glenn Younkin won a plurality black House Delegate district. And for all these people out there mocking white women, getting back to this again, the first black lieutenant governor was elected in the state of Virginia last night. The first Hispanic attorney general was elected in the state of Virginia last night. Yes, Glenn Younkin is white. Oh my God.
Goodness.
1 for 3. But look, the proof's in the pudding. And we also got the increase in the black vote share, which is just under 15%.
But you have to point out, though, that Virginia Democrats are mad that the first black...
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why they do this.
Yes, that's what they're mad about. How dare them...
I remember when they tried to hold up George Bush's attorney general because they didn't want him to get all of these first black, first Latino, first. They were, after a while, they were getting so pissed that George W. Bush had such a diverse, nomination process. And they did that to Trump as well. They hated Rick Grinnell. He was the first gay cabinet member. Which, by the way, the New York Times actually reported that Pete Buttigieg was the first gay cabinet member. Hello, Rick Grinnell didn't exist? I mean,
apparently not.
I don't, what? Or first gay nomination to be approved by the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. Anyway, so they're acting like this, and Republicans it's unfair, but Republicans should just continue. The issues that mattered to the voters last night, if Republicans are smart, let the Democrats continue. Let them still say critical race theory doesn't exist.
Please
Let them do it. People aren't stupid, obviously. If critical race theory doesn't exist, then what is Merrick Garland's son surveying all these colleges over?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we got our definition for critical race theory. The very group that has been running around to Ivy League colleges and surveying their students. We took it from them. In fact, we took it directly from the one they administered to Harvard.
Oh.
Incredible. But continue to claim that it's some course or something. This is what they tried to do. It's a course, right? There's no course called critical race theory. So we're not teaching critical race theory. People didn't buy it. And just let them continue to believe they can insult the intelligence of the voter like that. Mm-hmm. If you're smart, that's what you'll do. But it was more than that. Look at the difference in parental status by men. We told you that was going to happen.
True.
We did a whole damn show over it. The rape in Loudoun County was a big deal.
And it did exist.
And that happened.
Yes.
Both of them. Well, it wasn't. The second one wasn't a raise. It was assault. I'm minimizing it at all, but the first one was like grotesque, and I'm not going to get into it. But it absolutely had an impact, not just in Loudoun County, outside of Loudoun County. And by the way, speaking of Loudoun County, if you want to pick and choose precincts to make yourself feel better, knock yourself out. Terry Mcauliffe needed to win Loudoun County by at least 15 points, and by all accounts, should have done so. He did not. Loudoun County swung dramatically. Glenn Younkin's target was a 5% increase over Donald Trump. He got that. Terry Mcauliffe improved not even in any single county. You have to look by precinct. And he improved only in the precincts closest to the District of Columbia. That tells you everything you need to know about who was in touch with the voter and who was not. And in fact, before I play Glenn Younkin's speech, this is symbolic.
3.2 from the driveway of my house to your...
My God. Should I play that again? And that's after he rambled. That was actually the exit of his speech. That's after he rambled on and on. I know it missed the morning show content today, but are we really not going to bring up Terry Mcauliffe's behavior on stage last night?
And his cherry red lips?
I have known Terry, not known him personally, but I mean, if you've been in politics for a while, you know Terry Mcauliffe for a long time. I have never heard him speak like that. For all of the things he is, what he isn't is an incoherent, slurring fool. And he certainly doesn't wear lipstick. So what in the hell was going on last night? I will tell you what I heard. About an hour before, he was told that this is, and by the way, that's probably an hour late in realizing how bad of a night this was. I was being cautious last night, but the fact of the matter is, as soon as those numbers roll, even early vote numbers, it all pointed to bad news for Democrats. But about an hour before Terry Mcauliffe went on stage, his team told him, and his team had, kind of come to the conclusion that this was a loss, and that it was beyond the governor's race, and that it was a statewide race. The other two statewide offices were in jeopardy, and the House of Delegates could go. That they were basically setting up for a very bad defeat. So, speculate or don't speculate. But it seems to me like Terry hit the bottle and went on stage. Well, the only reason why I bring this up is because could you imagine if Donald Trump came out on stage and started slurring his words, or any Republican for that matter?
It'd be over.
With red lips like that? And they would absolutely speculate from alcohol to drugs.
And his wife was not wearing red lipstick.
And his
right.
So it didn't come from her. You can't condone this kind of behavior.
Nope.
You lose, you drink. That's what we
message.
accept for leaders. Anyway, very different. Listen, and I'll play the whole thing. I'll let it roll. But it's about a minute. I'll let it roll. But listen to this statement that Glenn Younkin opens his speech with.
There is no time to waste. Our kids can't wait. We work in real people time, not government time.
Real people time, not government time.
There is no time to waste. Our kids can't wait. We work in real people time, not government time. And so on day one, we're going to work. We're going to restore excellence in our schools. We will invest the largest education budget in the history of the Commonwealth. We're going to invest in teachers, new facilities, special education. We're going to introduce choice within our public school system. How about that? Choice within the public school system. We're going to start with 20 charter schools, and we are going to make a down payment and close the gap on giving parents an opportunity to select where their kids go to school. Friends, we're going to embrace our parents, not ignore them.
You notice a difference at all? Because, look, if Democrats can't do a little A versus B test this morning, then it's going to be an even bigger bloodbath than you think next year. And in fact, I'm looking at the board here now. You have big blue, very deep blue states. All eyes were on Virginia. All eyes were on Virginia. And they put a ton of resources into that. And as it turns out, New Jersey may swing further than Virginia. And there are always these surprises out there. At this point, Connecticut, that governor's election is on the table. I mean, could end up, even though the Republicans do not have as big of a deficit as they did in 2009 going to 2010. So, there isn't a 60-seat route to have in the House of Representatives, for instance. They could end up with a bigger majority that they had after 2010. Even though the floor is up, even though the ceiling is lower, because you just can't win that many seats. But there are seats now on the table that I really don't think anybody thought would be on the table before. You're looking even in Virginia, district by district, their performance among certain groups, black women. I mean, you poll it and you see it. And you're like, 13% of black women are going to go for Glenn Younkin. And we talked about that. And I speculated it was education. Ron DeSantis allegedly got 18%. By the way, stop. Democrats, don't fall for any of these grifters that I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. Ron DeSantis is not vulnerable. It's not going to happen. Do not waste your money, because I do believe, look, I believe there are good people everywhere. And that's who I am. These grifters will scam you out of your money, convincing you that Ron DeSantis is vulnerable. He's not vulnerable. You want to donate somewhere else to defend a seat or something? Actually, that would be the smartest bet. Donate to defend, all right? Because there is nowhere offensively that you really can be looking after last night. It's just true. No, what I'm telling you right now is you are in the ring with Mike Tyson, and all you can do is keep your hands up. All right, just make sure you don't give him your chin. That's all you can do. Ron DeSantis is going to KO his Democratic opponent. It's not going to be close. It will be an easy win for Ronnie. So watch where you spend your money. Watch where you spend your money. That's the best advice I could give you.
Everyone doesn't want you to give that advice. They said let them spend their money.
I don't like grifting. I really hate grifting. Yes, so Glenn says Democrats don't listen to Richard. I just saw that in the corner of my
True story.
Yeah, it's just like, I see these, Glenn, you know what I'm talking about. I see these grifting scumbags. They just put together some group like yesterday, and they're gonna pick races. They know there are intense feelings surrounding those races, but there really is no prayer to win. Like the Republicans did with a certain candidate who had no shot against a certain Democratic incumbent that everybody hates because she's in a very deep blue urban area. And raising money against her may be all well and good, but those millions of dollars could sure have hell been better spent for Republicans in Texas 15. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. Republicans, don't waste your money on these let's take out AOC races. No, let's pick up Texas 15. Let's pick up Wisconsin 3. Florida 13. It's just a way. At this point, by the way, Charlie Crist district, the Tampa area, district is in trouble for Democrat. Abigail Spanberger, based on the results of last night, is done.
Good night.
She's done. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing. We did our polling by district. She would need a miracle from God Almighty to save her. And Democrats do not show any sign of pivoting to doing what's necessary to not looking like a nutcase again. And in fact, I do hear that Pelosi's little meltdown last night was legit.
Yes.
All right. So some of you people may have saw Jack Posobiec tweet that Nancy Pelosi is considering not running because she doesn't want her legacy to end with this, what is showing up as a disaster for them. And I made some calls, and that is Nancy Pelosi. So there are people who generally think that what Jack said is true. All right. That she is not going to want to have to be at her final moment seen like she was seen with John Boehner after the Republican rout in 2010. And if you don't remember that, go back and look, and you'll see Nancy was like clutching that gavel. And John's like, oh, no, we're giving the gavel, Nancy. This is a ceremony, And she's like,
you remember when she was at the podium giving a speech and people were getting out of order?
Yeah.
And she's
like
pretending.
Yes, that was during the ceremony. After there were people who were speaking, and they go through their process. It is what I just said. It's the ceremony. But they were like talking out of turn. There's always some chatter, and she's like air gaveling.
Yes.
Like, Nancy, you're not the speaker anymore. Like, this is a woman who is not going to want to hand off the speakership to Kevin McCarthy. All right. And by the way, Glenn Younkin did not run as an anti-Trumper. That is bullcrap. And that establishment rhino analysis is 100% wrong. And if Republicans are hoping to somehow snatch defeat from the hands of victory, that would be the route to go down. What Glenn Younkin showed you is that you can embrace the fight over these controversial social issues that really now are the new culture wars. All right. And conservatives and populists come together on these issues, united against what is a very tiny minority, yet has an outspoken voice in media, in entertainment, in Washington, D.C., in corporate America, in big tech. You can embrace these issues and do so in a way that is more conducive to certain groups and the way they view leaders should act. You can do so without running from Donald Trump. You can do so without sounding like Donald Trump. The fact of the matter is, Republicans and populists, they always had the vast majority of the voters on their side. I just this morning spoke to somebody. They have a lot of work to do, though. They have a lot of work to do reintroducing themselves to voters. I just spoke to somebody earlier this morning. Friend voted, and I know the friend, known her for years. She knew me since I was this big. Voted for Phil Murphy and didn't realize he was the Democrat.
That's how bad.
Not that he didn't realize he was the Democrat. Didn't realize that he was the pro-mandate one. Didn't realize that he would be pro-CRT in schools. Didn't realize that he was the liberal one, the woke one. And that's because Jack Citarelli did not have the resources that Glenn Younkin had to get his message out. That is a massive failure on behalf of the National Republican Party and the Republican Governors Association for not helping Jack tell people like her who are ancestral Democrats. They've been Jersey working class, middle class for a long time. And by extension, that means you vote Democrat in New Jersey, folks. Trust me, I know. Glenn, back me up here. You know what I'm talking about. Irish, Italian. And they have to be reintroduced. They don't like what they see going on. They think it's crazy. Like the other supermajority, like the other people who make up a supermajority in this country. They think it's nuts. But they just don't know. And average, everyday people do not have the time to work their way through the minutia of politics and the issues.
They're busting their butt.
In a race like Virginia, Glenn Younkin was brilliant. He did not run away from Donald Trump. He embraced the question of that rape in Loudoun County, and he went after it. In fact, though, the one thing Younkin better hear and hear loud and clear tonight, you better make good on those promises.
Mm-hmm.
The minute you're in office, you better ban CRT. Forget about the bureaucracy, which is going to play games and try to tell you it doesn't exist. It's not in the curriculum. You better ban it and ban it in big, bold letters, baby. Because if you don't, you're in trouble. You better put together. Now you're not a candidate anymore. Mm-hmm. You said you would call for an investigation into Terry McAuliffe's friend. Terry McAuliffe's friend is the one who killed any investigation into what happened to that poor girl in that gender-neutral bathroom. It's more than just that kid's fault.
It's the people.
It is the fault of the people who enabled that disorder.
Yep.
It's the fault of the people who enabled that policy, who hid that grotesque event so they could continue that policy at the expense of another student.
Who can never get back
so now, Glenn,
what was stolen from her.
Now, that's right. Both girls.
Mm-hmm.
And now, Glenn, you are not a candidate anymore. And hear me loud and clear when I tell you, you better do what you tweeted you were going to do. And I gotta tell you, I think you will, because the man self-funded the hell out of his campaign. What was it, about 2 weeks ago? We went into the filings, compared Glenn Younkin versus Terry McAuliffe. Glenn Younkin can basically do whatever the hell he wants as governor. He has almost Donald Trump-like autonomy. So he has absolutely no excuse not to make it right. Not to make good on his promises like Donald Trump made good on his promises. And for those who say, well, there's only one-termers in Virginia. Donald Trump was a one-termer, and look how many promises he kept. You got 4 years, get to work.
Amen.
And that's it. But Republicans would absolutely be making a monumental mistake if they take this as some like Meghan McCain. Meghan McCain is an idiot. She has no political smarts whatsoever. She has been around all of the wrong political people her entire life, and she has living off of other people's names, and she is not in touch with the electorate. She doesn't know what Middle America thinks. She doesn't know who Middle America is. You cannot take this as a sign that that we should somehow advocate of banishing Donald Trump to the realm of Younkin could not have won without Trump's base. Our polling showed it. The results bore it out. But in a state like Virginia, you need Trump's base plus some. Plus those voters that Younkin convinced. You voted for Joe Biden, I need you to vote for me. You need to do it both in a state like Virginia. And the lesson here is that you just don't need to act like Donald Trump. But Glenn Younkin did not run away from Donald Trump. In fact, they tried to paint him, Glenn Younkin is constantly glorifying Donald Trump, constantly glorifying him. And by the way, Joe Biden's favorability was worse than his unfavorables were higher than Donald Trump in Virginia. And Trump was not exactly a rock star at 42-52, something like that. But Biden wasn't much better at 43-56. All right? So, the facts speak for themselves. The time for misinformation is over now. The campaign is done. Wade through the data, sift through the data. For Democrats, sift through the wreckage.
Once again, I want to say Rich Barris was the best pollster, as usual.
Like I said, the other one may become a little bit closer to that margin, but overall, our electorate was perfect.
Most accurate.
We gave the most accurate depiction of the electorate, of the state of the race, the entire state of the race. Because it's more than just, Fox, I told you, it was too rosy. But it did show the general direction it was going, and what Fox did do was show that this was not going to be some D+6 electorate. That was not going to happen. Not even Joe Biden got a D+6 electorate. Ralph Northam did in a pro-Democrat first-term incumbent midterm year. And it's time people start recognizing that historical indicators are more predictive than polls. And the truth is, all of those so-called models made the cowardly move within the last 48 hours of the race to change it from either leans Democrat or toss-up to leans Republican. We put something on locals yesterday, and I'm going to share it now. Okay, and now I can add it. I can actually add it, and we can do it together. Okay?
Somebody wants to know...
Hold on one second, okay? This is what Democrats and Terry McAuliffe had to fight against last night. This is, and I'll zoom in for you guys. Yeah, let me zoom in. I could have gotten the PDF and looked at it, what I sent on locals, but this was the Google spreadsheet that I used to make the PDF. This is the history of Virginia gubernatorial elections versus congressional and White House control from 1977 to now. And we can clearly do this now. Glenn Younkin. Margin still, I would say, is to be determined. Okay? Clearly, Democrats had a very tall order to fill. In every single first-term incumbent midterm cycle, the party who won the White House the year before lost the governor's race in Virginia. In only one occasion did the party who held the White House at that current time also win the governorship. That would be Mr. Terry McAuliffe won it when Barack Obama was president in 2013. But that was because it was a second term. Barack Obama won it. In every first term incumbent midterm, if you include who had control of the House of Representatives, it's a perfect 5-for-5 record. The idea that the Washington Post poll or the Suffolk poll, with their track records, no offense, yes, Washington Post can be offended, I don't care. Suffolk University, I think they really did try. They had a D+3 electorate. I told you last week that was defendable, although wrong. Defendable, albeit wrong. All right? But the idea that, their favorite pollsters should somehow be a greater weight in their variable in their so-called models than 50 years worth of history almost is ridiculous. Especially given the polling blunders we have seen, not just in 2020, not just in 2016, but really since 2014, it has gotten seriously worse. Over the last 7 years, there's been a polling blunder every cycle. Big one. I'm talking about not just one state, one poll. A general polling blunder. In 2014, Republicans were generally very understated in the Senate races, very understated in the generic ballot. It only started to move after Labor Day leading up into the election. But speaking of the Washington Post poll, by mid-September, the Washington Post still was forecasting that Democrats would hold the Senate. It only broke slightly in the end in the direction of Democrats. And like we saw in this race, certain models, so-called models like the crystal ball, barely moved Arkansas when everybody could clearly see Tom Cotton was going to crush Mark Pryor. They waited till the final moments to go, okay, I guess it's leans Republican. No, it was likely Republican. And it was likely Republican once Republicans had a nominee in Tom Cotton. Crappy forecasting polls do not outweigh all of the other predictive indicators that actually still have predictive value. The partisan lean of a state. The issues that mattered most to voters. The change in identification and registration. Look at that. I even color-coded it just to illustrate how much They ignored the reality of the environment in this race.
That's their bubble that they live.
And for what other reason other than a narrative would they wait so long to change that race? To hop from leans one party to leans another without even recognizing, even a few weeks ago, then you know what? Maybe this is a toss-up. Mcauliffe never had some, within the last month, he never had some huge lead. 2 months ago, it looked like he could win it pretty substantially. But even still, as a real forecaster would ignore those overinflated leads in polls and defer to history, to variables that are actually still predictive. And I'm not saying, a certain lean to Mcauliffe a month ago wasn't justified. But they absolutely should have taken a good margin off of his Real Clear Politics average lead. This race was always a toss-up. Really, yeah, the poll suggested it leaned to Mcauliffe. When we got in the field a couple weeks ago, it was the tiniest little, well within the sampling error lead for Terry McAuliffe. Well within the sampling error. So excuse me for taking a little bit of a victory lap here in the morning. I just had to show you what they were doing. Because get ready, they're going to do it again. This bloodbath you just witnessed last night, quote, bloodbath, that will not stop them from doing things like Gretchen Whitmer, the state, the governor's race in Michigan is likely or leans Democrat until it becomes very clear 2 days, 3 days before that it doesn't.
I want to see the data that they have that shows that
Ron
swing.
DeSantis leans Republican. No, that race is likely Republican, and even if PPP comes out with 8+ Democrat polls, it still won't matter. It is a likely Republican hold. Governor Abbott, despite the Dallas Morning News' crappy poll, is likely to hold on to the governor's mansion. This is crazy. We're back to this all over again? Abbott versus Beto O'Rourke, Beto O'Rourke +2? We're really going to do this again?
Shameful.
In Texas last night, which I'm glad we got into, all eyes on Virginia, then New Jersey shocked everybody. What people didn't see was in Texas, where on a state level, Republicans turned out in force, and Texas, Governor Abbott's right, got more Republican. District, where we were pointing out last night, 74% Hispanic. 74%. And guess what? It's outside of San Antonio. It's not even like an El Paso, Zapata County kind of district. In the south and in the southwest of Texas, it is much more Hispanic. The Hispanics, they may even still be registered Democrats, but they are much more conservative. And Donald Trump really did get them to look again at the Republican Party in a way that they hadn't done since they felt George W. Bush betrayed them. By allowing the economy to collapse. By allowing their homes to get taken. By allowing all of their hard-earned work and savings to go down the damn toilet.
So much for retirement.
They were pro-Bush in 2004. And then Republicans lost them for 15 years. Oh, no, about 13 years. Until Donald J. Trump came along and said, no, we are your party. And they helped to offset how the Anglo vote in Texas, which is what they call the white vote, was less lopsided than it had always been for years. So this is a bit of a danger sign, not a bit, it's a big danger sign for Democrats moving forward. They spend all sorts of money, by the way, in Texas to flip Texas as well. Whatever, let them knock it out, right? Glenn's right. Let them spill their, let them drain their wallets. Go ahead. It's not happening. Because the amount of the marginal shift in the white vote which probably will shift back to, there will be, like I told you, a suburb shift in the Dallas suburbs now. That's going to happen. There will be, we just saw it, a shift outside of San Antonio. We just saw it. That's why we call those voters swing voters. They swing, by the way. Suburban voters, they're swingy. That's why the suburbs are a swing vote. Now, I don't know if I have to define what the word swing means. They acted like they were there and solidly, and that's it, and it was done. Well, not if you lose your minds and start teaching kids that not only if you ever teach them, because you keep them out of school so long, they're scared of a viral particle that poses no risk to them, ruining their life, their scholarships, their proms, their first dates.
Not even educational scholarships.
Their science, yes, right. Too. Science, math. And then when they get back to school, instead of catching them up, you'd like to replace some of that curriculum with, by the way, you are black and you are not as good as everybody else because the country is inherently racist, and we just have to recognize that if we're really going to get past it. And by the way, white people, you should feel really guilty about this. So you should be ashamed, hate yourself.
And fail.
And fail, yes. Let's instill not confidence, but a feeling of guilt and shame, so they go on to be a generation of freaking losers. And that is what parents saw.
And then parents
and they said, you know what? I'm putting the brakes on here. Yeah, and then God forbid you speak up in defense of your child, and you're a domestic terrorist who needs to be drugged out of the school board meeting. And if Democrats want to continue to not acknowledge this, whatever, let them.
Please, by all means.
By all means, knock yourself out. But again, Texas 15, big trouble. Big trouble. We'll see how they restructure that district. But that district's going.
Bye.
That district is going. Mark my words. I mean, again, that's with a caveat considering it's roughly the same district. But after what we saw last night in Texas, holy moly. And I mean, it really was a defeat across the board for Democrats and their initiatives. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court race, they thought they were going to get a 6-1. Remember? Mm-hmm. They thought they were going to get a 6-1 majority, before the people of Pennsylvania. Again, this is an acknowledgement basically everywhere that Democrats, for a long time, the Republican base has been trying to say, Democrats are not the Democrats you remember. These people have gone off the rails. They want to teach your kids this. They want to do this with the economy. They want to do that with your wallet. They want to do this with your estate. People really weren't listening. And Republicans are like, socialist, and that doesn't really work. That word does not invoke fear in Americans the way it used to. And in truth, it has always been closer to fascism, which is the word they should have been using to begin with. But it doesn't matter. When you get into individual issues, especially the issues that matter most to voters, and then you educate them on it, this is where I stand. This is where my opponent stands. This is what I stand for. This is what my opponent stands for. That's what Glenn Younkin did in Virginia. And you force people to re-examine their allegiance to a party. Donald Trump did that, by the way, in the state of Pennsylvania. He forced Democrats who had been voting Democrat for many years to re-examine their party allegiance. And that is, and they for years didn't realize it and had been voting in, what they assumed were Democratic, their Democratic Party. Judges who were aligned with their Democratic Party's worldview. Didn't realize that they were getting judges that were not aligned with their worldview. And now that it is the new Pennsylvania, they elected the conservative justice last night. In New York, voters statewide, by what was a 12-point margin by the last time I looked, rejected same-day registration and vote by mail. Rejected it in the Empire State. In the city of Minneapolis, an initiative to replace the police department. Another crazy idea that people think are not. Look, I'm calling it crazy, not only because it is freaking crazy. This isn't debatable. You can't not have police departments. But I'm also aligning myself from the polls we have conducted with the overwhelming majority of Americans in this country. So when I say crazy, I mean because only 18 to 22% of the country support this crap. To replace an initiative to basically replace the police department with like a Democrat social service bureaucracy went down in flames. Well, man, I'm having a fart here. Whoa. Minneapolis, thank you.
I was like, which one are you?
Yeah, I kept thinking in my head Milwaukee, and I'm like, no, it's Wisconsin, man. You know, but all those Great Lake states, you know, you can wrap them all up. You know, but that went down. So Democrats were pretty much there was no silver lining anywhere for Democrats last night. That is a indisputable fact. It is 12:01. We're going to have to take a break here in a second. When we come back, we'll take a look at the maps. We'll look at New Jersey. All right. I'll give you an update there, and I'll tell you what's out, what's left, and why I think, why I think what I do about that race. And then we can go over Virginia, and I want to show you some notable areas where it was really, once I saw them, you guys, I was being conservative last night. But, once I saw like Chesterfield and Loudoun County.
Yeah, no.
I was like, this race
like
is
a little
over.
Kid
Yeah, I was
smiling.
secretly like whispering to Laura, like, 2 points, 2, 3 points.
You see this?
The exit polls showed a 1 to 2 point win for Younkin, but he was performing better than some of those expectations in absentee ballot voting, which was kind of hilarious if you think about it. And Mcauliffe did do a little bit better in some of the election day vote in certain areas than people had suggested, but it was not enough to offset these swings that we were seeing to Younkin. And the baseline clearly was, Biden won by 10. We had the baseline for Northam, who won by 8. We knew what we knew what each candidate had to get in certain areas, and the overall theme was, that depending on where you looked, we were seeing excess of 10-point swings, 12 here maybe, 15-point there maybe, not because all areas are important. I'm just saying the most bellwether areas, like Chesterfield is a bellwether area. Okay, it is predictive. And once we saw what we saw with Younkin there, Loudoun, it really was all about Loudoun too, and the margin Mcauliffe was going to get there. An outright win in Loudoun would have been like, I could have called the race in 30 minutes. If Younkin was going to actually take Loudoun County, we could have all went to bed last night at 9:00. That would have been it. It wouldn't matter what Fairfax did. It just wouldn't matter. But then it got to the point. That's why it was closer. Because there were some areas where, Mcauliffe did start to widen out a little bit. Because at one point, Loudoun was 5 points for a long time throughout the whole night. But McAuliffe's later absentee ballot votes came in, which helped him. There's a little bit left in Loudoun County. And this is the problem. And maybe I'll just do this after the break. And we will. And I'll show you why Terry McAuliffe, it was over. He had no chance to overcome Younkin's margin, and why I was getting so frustrated last night with people not calling it. I'll tell you that in a second. Or when we come back from break, we'll go over it. But, it's not like 2020 in Virginia right now. The vote that is out is not expected to lean overwhelmingly to Terry McAuliffe. It's not expected to. There's vote out right now that will lean Younkin. Like I said, and I know everybody was having a heart attack on Charlie Kirk's show last night. I got to bill Charlie Kirk and Company for being their shrink for the night.
Personal
It's just
shrink.
like, listen, I understand what people are saying, but the Washington Post is smoking crack and staying awake, all sketched out, what's the words? Yeah, they're all sketched out, looking on the map for votes.
You said they had to take the blow out of their nose.
Take the blow out of your nose,
But Charlie and Company were very grateful for you talking them down.
Yeah, and I'm that's good. Here, so I'll put the locals link in the thing again. I don't know, maybe I put the wrong link in there before, guys. But that will give you the front page. And if you're not signed up, you'd have to sign up. But
But I
That's
also
it.
can't blame people for being so nervous after 2020.
Mikael said, we're going to find LBJ's ballot box number 13 in New Jersey.
I bet you would.
And we'll also talk about that when we come back. Like, this crap has to stop.
And I have
Because
support.
they sow discord for no reason. Some of it is really just incompetence, right? But, yeah, they're on crack over there at the Washington Post, folks. They're on crack.
Mhm.
I mean, guys, stop snorting in the cubicle. And just, like I said, go have your favorite scotch or whatever you drink and just
Detox.
accept it. And stop this. Like, Mark Elias is not going to swoop in and find 100,000 votes. All right. All right, let's take a quick break, and we will return more with Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Again, if you like these videos, guys, everybody, I didn't even say this last night on the show with all those viewers. If you're on YouTube right now, we'd hit the like button. If you don't like it, don't like it, or hit, thumbs down. It's a free damn country, or at least it's supposed to be. All right, but definitely, if you do enjoy the video, subscribe to YouTube, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. If you're on Rumble, give us a rumble. And then subscribe. That will also let you know when we're going to go live. Definitely consider joining the locals community. A revolution in data journalism. peoplespundit.locals.com. Getting my barns down. peoplespundit.locals.com. Eventually, we have our goals for the end of the year. And eventually, I would really love to get to a point where it'll just be the locals poll.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be able to do national tracking. And when we have races like this, we wade into races like this. All right. Coming up on the midterm elections, that's why I want to get back in the field again right now. So the public polling project right now, it is up. If you can do it, I really want to get it done before the holidays and people don't have money. All right. But I really would love, after this race, to get back in that field very shortly and see what the generic ballot now looks like. Because I think everybody needs to rethink what's going to happen here. What do we have? 3 or 4 point generic ballot lead for Republicans or something? Slight lead?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was a little less than Trump's lead
And
over Biden.
Let's not forget about that amazing $200 campaign. That one.
He almost took out Sweeney.
That
A truck driver who ran as a Republican against Sweeney, who is the Senate leader in New Jersey, damn near almost took out Sweeney. And he spent nothing. He spent nothing.
So
all right, so we will, again, let me take that quick break. We'll be back. Like I said, check it out. Check out the Public Polling Project if you can. Do so. We'll be back to Inside the Numbers in a hot minute. Give me 2 minutes and 30.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear overnight, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit.
All right, and I'm back because we got a lot to go over, so I figured cut it short. You can listen to the rest of the Bone Band when we're done. All right, but it's 12:10. Got quite a bit to show. Let's go back and take a look at some of these results here. All right, we will go to let's go to Jersey first.
People were clamoring to get you back onto YouTube after you went off.
Yeah, Phil Murphy has taken the lead in what we got. Yeah, I know, but I got like a huge drive, and I thought we had pretty good idea the way it was going to go. I know a lot of people had a lot of high hopes for New Jersey, and of course, there are a lot of ballots out left, and we don't know what's going to happen with those ballots. That's absolutely true. But you did see 88% here still in Union County for Phil Murphy. Middlesex is in. Phil Murphy did take that lead. We saw Bergen flip, even though Bergen shifted considerably from the 2020 vote.
People are asking about that.
Yeah, guys, it was absentee ballots. All right, so we expected when we looked at it. I mean, it was the registration. This is publicly available information. The registration was 60% almost Democrat in the remaining absentee ballots that were in Bergen. That's why I told when I went on the Charlie Kirk show and explained to everybody that lead was likely either going to tighten and maybe it'd be about 50-50 or slightly Murphy. Now it's slightly Murphy. That it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't. Passaic is still, again, close. I think by the time all is said and done, it's going to look a lot like Bergen does. Okay. Sussex is in. Warren is in. There are absentee ballots basically everywhere. Mercer is still out. It's a Democratic county. So Murphy has vote remaining, while Monmouth and Ocean, two really big Republican counties, there will be some that trickle in. But unless there's some kind of an error where they find ballots, you can see that really these votes are in. Salem is a Republican county. Jack Citarelli did well there. Cumberland County is a bit of a shocker. I don't expect that to flip back. Joe Biden carried Cumberland County, but he barely carried it. This was an enormous shift in the vote here. Gloucestershire, the Atlantic, which used to be Democratic, also went to Citarelli. Camden is a big Democratic county, and they're saying they still have a pretty good number. All told, there's about 500,000 absentee ballot votes still out there. I know that sounds like a lot, and you're like, how the hell could that be? Well, there is. And there could be, some change in the pattern. Maybe, Murphy does not do as good as people thought. Somerset tightened with 7% out. I think they got about 80,000. They got 80,000 now. So they got probably, a couple, maybe 10,000 ballots left, 20,000 tops. Yeah, I think that I can't remember, but I think it was like 12 or something. That probably will push Somerset a little. It could push it towards. I think it's likely it'll go to Murphy. But there's just more Murphy vote out left. So this morning, Citarelli lost that lead, and it would be very difficult with the blue areas remaining to make that up. Now, this is before I move on. It will be much closer than anybody expected, and it's technically a loss, of course, for Citarelli, but for Republicans and for his name brand, this is a win. And if I was Jack, I would not come off the stage. He ran an incredible campaign with very little resources. Folks, to do this in the Garden State with their media markets, this is impressive. Very impressive. And I know it sucks for people who live in New Jersey and voted for Jack Citarelli, but it is an indicator of how much Democrats have slid in these states. If this is what happened in deep blue New Jersey, one of only 2 states in the entire nation to vote more for Barack Obama in 2012 than they did in 2008. That's how blue New Jersey is. The other one was Hawaii. If that's what's happening in blue New Jersey, then holy hell, folks. What is going on in Georgia?
Mm-hmm.
What is going on in Wisconsin? What is going on in Michigan? What is going on in Pennsylvania? What's going on in Nevada? What's going on in Arizona? What's going on in Florida?
Time to get on it.
What's going on in New Hampshire, which has a competitive governor's race with a very well-liked Republican candidate, who, by the way, has a very good relationship with Donald Trump. Team Trump loves Sununu. He is very well liked in the state of New Hampshire. Very known, too. High name recognition. Biden won it by about the same margin he won Virginia. That is another state that is not looking good for Democrats at this moment. By the way, what's happening in Connecticut? What's happening in Maine? Look, Rona better get her head out of her butt because, and the National Republican Congressional Committee, after last night, updated their target map, and they're still missing a ton of very winnable districts. And I say, well, Rich, we have finite resources. That's nonsense. Then spread them out more. Because if Jack Citarelli can do this with nothing almost, and a truck driver who spent $200 can almost take out the Senate leader, that's it. That is it. All right, let's move on to Virginia and see what happened here. Okay? Mm-hmm. All right, so we're still looking at a 2.2 lead for Glenn Younkin. Almost all of the vote is in. Fairfax is down and out. They keep doing this, though. Now Loudoun is 3. Fairfax. They're trying to estimate that absentee ballot vote that's still out. However, you can see that Chesterfield is still out, which is tightening that margin, 52-47 now. I don't think there's enough for Terry Mcauliffe to make that up in Chesterfield. I really don't. But it probably will get closer. The problem is there is other votes too. There are other places out that are pretty pro Younkin and will be pro Younkin. Not away. Halifax went for Younkin by 60-40, basically. If I'm rounding, that's pretty incredible. Let's see what Danville did. And Danville's in 53-46, basically. I'm just looking at Roanoke City. I'm looking at a couple of places to see what changed the last time I looked. That there's little vote out there. It is not exclusively blue. Unlike, and look, he did not flip. Glenn Younkin did not flip Northampton. Very close margin, about 105 votes, but that is not likely to flip either, and neither. And Accomack will not. Virginia Beach is not going to flip. This is when Chesapeake City, I just don't, 5 with even 4% left for Mcauliffe to take it. There's no way he's netting 5,700 votes. Norfolk has some vote out. Yeah, but so like I said, when we looked at the margin last night, basically what it showed, even what we knew was outstanding and will trickle in throughout the rest of this week, all the way up until Friday. There is no way for Mcauliffe to make it up. We think he can get, if things like broke well his way, the closest that I believe he could get is within 40,000 votes. And that's just not good enough. I will say this. Glenn Younkin's favorability rating was really good. It was very positive. And it gives him an opportunity to make a real name for himself if he governs correctly. Virginia doesn't have 2 terms. Their governors are limited to 1 term at a time. You can come back and serve again like Terry Mcauliffe did. There have been instances of that, but it's been rare. And usually it's a jump off point, right? So Glenn Younkin, if he governs correctly, he can do a lot of good for his party in the state of Virginia, but also he can make a long career. Maybe that's somebody who can take out Mark Warner in a couple. Mark Warner's been in there a long time. He's not as moderate as he used to be. Mark Warner, by the way, was a former governor, if you remember that list. So was Tim Kaine, if that sounds familiar to you. What's Tim Kaine now? A senator. He also was Hillary Clinton's vice presidential nominee. George Allen. It was a Republican, by the way. But there's a lot of, if he does a good job, he has a very bright future.
Yes.
And it's also an opportunity now to reintroduce the state to Republicans. He actually improved on Donald Trump's margins in some of these rural areas, which we did see he would do. Okay. Donald Trump really killed it out in places like Buchanan, and Younkin got 85% of the vote out there. There were only less than 6,000 votes cast, And Younkin netted just over 4,000 votes. There's 6,000 votes less than 6,000 votes cast there. And he netted over 4,000. So a lot of this modeling that is done, had to be readjusted last night. Everybody was doing their little readjustments because the margins in these rural areas were making Younkin's targets in other more well-known areas that we were following and talking about less as the night went on. And by the way, Hopewell City still has vote out. Younkin is carrying it. However, it is very close. They're separated right now by about 17 votes. That is just north of Petersburg City, which also has some vote out. But again, it's those suburbs that surrounded Enrico. Mcauliffe really needed to run up the score in Enrico County. I'd have to go back and look, but Biden was in the 60s there. And they're basically in. They have a few little absentee ballots to cast, but it's not going to do much of a difference. Younkin held Terry Mcauliffe to 58.5% there. So what we saw was Mcauliffe really fell shy in a lot of these very deep blue areas, while Younkin did much better in deep red areas. Arlington, look at this. Joe Biden won 82% plus in Arlington, which is the most Democrat. We always talk about Fairfax, but it's not. Arlington is the most Democratic county. It just doesn't have the population that Fairfax has. In this county, Donald Trump won about 17% of the vote. Glenn Younkin won 23% of the vote. I mean, so just these improvements everywhere shifted these nets like crazy. Even in Fairfax, by the way, Glenn Younkin stayed just about at 34.8%. The magic number, or roughly, is around 35. You fall into the low 30s or the high 20s, like Trump, and you're in deep trouble. All right, because that's when those nets start really going. But the overall net with 95% reporting, last time when I left Charlie Kirk and everybody was having a heart attack, Terry McAuliffe's net was just under 130,000 votes, about 127. And that was with 90% reporting. Now 95% has reported, and Terry McAuliffe's net is only 130,000. He only netted a few more thousand votes after Fairfax counted another, it looks like 30,000 votes. That is not enough. That's not enough. So the idea that people were hanging their hat on this, like, but there's still 10% in Fairfax. What they were asking you to believe was that Fairfax would give almost the entire net that they had given with 90% in, with the final 10% remaining. I mean, guys, and I know people like worried. It's crazy. And I know people were worried because they were like, well, that happened in 2020. But we knew where these votes were coming in. We knew the break was not going for Terry McAuliffe the way that they had expected it to go, and it just wasn't happening.
And we had accurate numbers this time, not margins.
Yeah. And by the way, Bob McDonnell won Fairfax County in 2009. I kid you not. So if you want to know how much, it's not just issues. This idea, it's not just issues. And it's not just turnout modeling. All right? This state has changed. Fairfax and Loudoun County, and here's Loudoun, changed dramatically. And by the way, after 2% of the vote just came in, as we were talking, started the show, it had dipped back down to 95%. Terry McAuliffe was at 55-something, okay? Now it's 97% in, and Terry McAuliffe is at 54.7. So that amount in Loudoun County that just came in, the final 2%, was not better for Terry McAuliffe. It was worse. His 11-point lead is now down to 10.1. All right, so, like, I just can't keep, over and over. There's not enough votes here for Terry McAuliffe to catch up. 72,000 votes, roughly, is the margin right now, a little under 72,000. It is possible for McAuliffe to get it to around 40 if everything were to go his way, but he can't have breaks like that in Loudoun County. because that suggests it's not going to be as pro-Democrat as he thought it would be. All right, so it's over. And the decision desk was right to say it was over. And by the way, there is no silver lining in Loudoun County for those people who are trying to make that argument, right? Just to address what you had shown me before, or told me before. There is no silver lining. That county has consistently shifted Democratic since 2009. There was one brief blip in that relatively low turnout election between Cuccinelli and Mcauliffe. Cuccinelli only lost Loudoun County by about 4 points, by the way. There was a Libertarian on the ballot, which sucked about 5% off of Ken Cuccinelli's overall, which really pissed Republicans off, depending on the county, about 4 or 5%. But yeah, I mean, other than that, right back after that, we had the presidential election. It continued to go. Then Ralph Northam, it continued to go. Then Joe Biden, it continued to go. I mean, it's been steady. Ralph Northam, by the way, as of right now, Terry Mcauliffe got almost 200,000 votes more than Ralph Northam. Roughly. Hasn't really updated that much since I last looked, you know.
Hey, I got to update.
And yet, still,
Sorry.
Ralph Northam
I thought you paused.
got fewer votes than Terry Mcauliffe. And that's great for him. But the problem is, Younkin got about 500,000 more votes than Ed Gillespie. Go ahead.
Update. Younkin won. Y'all a bunch of losers.
That's
all
it,
I
huh?
wanted to say.
I mean, look, what
just
happened
over
last
it.
night was really, really pathetic.
Yes.
All right,
It
I
was
mean,
very sad.
it was sad to watch. And by the way, Fox News was the last network to call the race. Shameful.
Mm-hmm.
Shameful. These are people who called the House of Representatives in 2018 before there were still votes on the table. People were still voting. And they were calling races before California was even done in critical Orange County districts, Southern California districts. Critical. And they basically told Republicans, go home, it's over. These are the people who called Arizona when Arizona barely turned out to be Biden. And they knew damn well they didn't make that call accurately. But they couldn't call this race? Younkin's margin is going to exceed Joe Biden's margin in Arizona. Ridiculous fold. Ridiculous fold. All right.
I just thought you'd like
Oh, that's cool.
I might
That's
need
cool.
a favor.
Yeah, I did see that. All right.
All right, so
go
we
ahead.
have
Yeah.
some simple question. Well, not simple as in like they're simple, but short answer
Yeah.
questions.
Let's do it.
One of our viewers would like to know, what do you mean about how he was Trump-like autonomy? How he has Trump-like autonomy?
Oh, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
So he was falling behind on fundraising pretty significantly. And Terry Mcauliffe was, I can't remember what episode it was. Otherwise, I'd refer you back to it when we went through it. But it was a very interesting episode. But generally, what we were doing, we were looking up his filings, or his opensecrets.org, if you want to do it. And we were looking through Terry Mcauliffe money and Glenn Youngkin's money. Excuse me again.
Mm-hmm.
Terry Mcauliffe had no autonomy because he doesn't really have his own fortune to spend to bankroll himself. And he was taking money from pharmaceuticals, healthcare, unions, lawyers, your very typical K Street band of merry men. And it would have meant a very typical Terry Mcauliffe Democratic kind of administration. Or I wouldn't even say Democratic, K Street administration, where, they'll have to do what special interests wanted because they bankrolled their election, and their administration belongs to them, belongs to the rent seekers. Glenn Younkin was taking money, a lot of individuals, but also not a lot from like the Chamber of Commerce or organizations like that, but rather much smaller organizations. He obviously, looking at his filing to me, tells me he did not want to be a Chamber of Commerce Republican. And he could have easily said, damn, I'm behind 16 million, whatever it is. I'm behind. I'm going to go to the Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to go to your typical Republican interest groups, and I'm going to ask for money to help catch me up to Terry Mcauliffe. But he didn't. He took out his pocketbook. He took out his checkbook, and he wrote himself a check. He is a wealthy man. He's a very successful businessman. And that tells me that he wanted to be his own special interest. Mm-hmm. If you do that like he did, and Donald Trump even did it more so in the first campaign he ran. Second one was bankrolled largely by the people, working class people. But if you want to have autonomy and you don't want to be under the yoke of special interests, so that when something like CRT comes up or vaccine mandates, you don't get pressured by the teachers' unions. You don't get pressured by the healthcare sector. Everyone who gave you money. You don't get pressured by lawyers and trial associations. You can do what you feel like is the right, the constituents wants, and is the constituency wants, and is the right thing to do. So like I said, he could have ran. He's Virginia Republican. Ed Gillespie ran to the Chamber of Commerce. Ed Gillespie ran to every other Republican special interest group. Glenn Younkin did not. He picked out his own checkbook and he wrote himself a check. And that tells me a few things. One, he believed enough in his campaign to do that, because rich people didn't get rich by wasting money.
True story.
All right. He believed in his campaign. He believed that he could do better for the Commonwealth. And three, that he believed when he got there, he would want to have the freedom to do what he thinks is the right.
That's key.
That's what Donald Trump did. That's why Donald Trump could move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. That's why Donald Trump could work with Elijah Cummings, who bailed out like a coward, on prescription drug costs. That's why Donald Trump could go after these ridiculous restrictions to healthcare competition. That's why Donald Trump could remove troops from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, wherever. That's why Donald Trump could bully NATO into their fair share. Because they didn't have the military-industrial complex, Wall Street, K Street, foreign policy lobby, anti-Israel lobby, pro-Israel lobby. He didn't have
back to the States instead.
And that's why Donald Trump. That's right, and that's why. Oh, that's a big one.
Yes.
That's why Donald Trump could sign TPP away in the first week in office. That's why Donald Trump could renegotiate NAFTA on a bilateral basis. We're not going to have these crazy multilateral trade deals anymore. Justin, get over here. NAFTA is gone, and we are renegotiating trade relations with Canada and the United States. You can pick up the phone and call Mexico, Peru, Brazil, blah 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 blah.
So on.
Because Paul Ryan, take Paul Ryan. We did a great story on it on PPD when Donald Trump was running. Paul Ryan's objection to Donald Trump had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with ideology. It was all about the ungodly amount of money that Paul Ryan's benefactors had paid to get TPP. And they wanted Ryan to stop Donald Trump, to go against Donald Trump, to, sow a division in his candidacy. Because, folks, when I tell you the amount of money spent on TPP to get it done it starts with a B and not an M. We're talking billions of dollars because it's worth it to them. They stand to make that tenfold. Soon.
Yeah.
They ain't gonna have to wait for it for 10 years.
A long time. It's coming.
And Paul Ryan is a freaking sellout who was doing the dirty job of his, the K Street benefactors wanted him to do. All right, go ahead. That was a great question, though. That was a great question.
Mm-hmm. All right, so
I'm gonna take a sip of coffee if you all don't mind, because I am.
We need it. Vince said, great show last night. Y'all are
Thank
the
you, Vince.
absolute best. Question for Rich. Could you break down the vote by congressional district? I'd like to see my district, Virginia 7. Spookburger, but also Virginia 2 and Virginia 10. I know they'll change with redistricting, but still want to see where things are.
That's a great question. I can't show it to you because it's not on here, but as of right now, Younkin appears to have won the 7th congressional district by about 12 points. Okay?
And what
Hold on
about
one
2
second.
and 10?
Yeah, a lot less. So 10 was very close. Mcauliffe, let me go back and look. I actually think I wrote it down. Hold on. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, I do. Where are you? Where are you, sucker? Come on. By the way, yeah, VA2 was looks, of course it's not done yet. It will VA10, I mean, will probably be. Hold on one second. I gotta get another tab up and get that swing margin here. I go to this one. There's a link on the other one, so I can see the swing. Will probably be Mcauliffe by 2 in 10. It's not done yet, but maybe I'm giving him a little benefit of doubt. It is like just over a point right now, which is huge because it was D plus 12 in 2020. It's a big deal. It's a big swing. Okay, here we're getting closer. Come on, Virginia. There you go. All right. Yeah. Lane Luria in Virginia 2 won it. I'm just trying to get the prior amount so I can give this one. They're so damn small.
I know. It's like the.
Come on, stop. There I am. Elaine Luria won Virginia 2, 52-46 over Scott Taylor. Okay, so by 8 points. And right now, it looks to have shifted then about 11 because Younkin took it by 3. So, that's what it was before. We'll see what it irons out fully. Mm-hmm. All right, but that's also a big deal. And then the 10th congressional district is like the Hail Mary in Virginia. But I remember, if you guys remember here, I'll pull up my polling and we'll go over it. If you guys remember, I was stunned by how close these districts were. And 10 is a little bit harder. What's 10? Loudoun County. All right. So if Republicans were to take Virginia 10, then that is a certainty that 2 and 7 are gone. All right. I just didn't think it'd be. Why does this keep happening? District keeps disappearing. Maybe I'm not hitting save. I just did it during what are the odds? You would think it would stay there. Mm-hmm. Update. Save. Saving it. Preparing updates. Oh my god, I'm snooze factor here. Please.
I know. We have no energy for waiting.
And I hate waiting for that. Yeah.
We're so tired.
Well, it's updating all the other the charts that are associated with it. Here, I got it now.
Oh, okay.
All right. So we had Younkin falling slightly short in the 10th by. Oh no, it was tied at 49%. With leaners. In the 2nd congressional district, we actually thought that was going to be pretty lopsided. We thought Mcauliffe was going to take that by about 10 points, 20 points, when all those leaners leaned. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could have been a lot more. I mean, it was a 20-point margin in our poll, and when those leaners were going to Younkin, so it was going to tighten. But that was a pretty big area. District polling is difficult. I mean, yes. And especially when you're using representation the way we are, it's not like we polled the district alone, which would mean you need to get 400 500 mm-hmm. sample size. So you're like extrapolating in some cases. Mm-hmm. And by the way, right on the money though, in Abigail Spanberger's district, we underestimated Glenn Younkin in Spanberger's district by about 2 points, but he still carried it. Yep. So that's a good question, though. Very good. I love getting into the minutia, that stuff. Mm-hmm. I'll see if I can make some charts available for you. Yeah, by congressional district.
That's local.
That's cool. That's locals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll work on that. I'll see if I can. Maybe we don't have to do them all, but I could at least start out with the more competitive districts. All right. Put it on high charts or something.
Sorry. All right. C. Nardog wants to know: do you believe Hispanics are finally realizing they are Republican after Reagan's claim 40 years ago?
Well, they were moving to the Republican Party, with the exception of Bill Clinton's elections, which weren't really impressive at all because Bill Clinton never really won a majority. There was always, the Ross Perot coalition, by Roper's accounts, if you believe Roper polling, was about 20% Hispanic. So some of that was always being pulled away from the Republican Party, which could have distorted that trend. I think that Hispanics would have continued to move Republican if we did not crash the economy and give Democrats an opening. There was constant replacing, right? So as that political maturation process happened, Democrats were constantly replacing them with new illegals. What happened is that Michael Barone was right. As a net migration goes, after the crisis, there wasn't the opportunity here for illegals that there had been before. So illegal replacement of politically matured Hispanics began to slow quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then they were also the population that was hurt. So Democrats had it in. They saw it. They took it. Okay? Sanabla. They saw it. They took it. And then now, I think what we're seeing is a shifting back somewhat because of the Trump message, but also because culturally, I just read it. I think it was in the Dallas Morning News. I read a fantastic piece about Texas Hispanics.
Yes.
They never really were. They're not liberal.
Mm-mm.
They're not liberal, and they never really were.
Their core
Democrats
values
made, Democrats made, and they're starting to realize now that Democrats don't share their values. But also, now that economic pain is starting to disappear, that attachment to George W. Bush as a figure of the Republican Party is really weak now. So now there's a chance, basically. There is, a chance for Republicans to make inroads with them. And I think they did it, they very clearly did it again. It's just, Virginia's it's not a huge Hispanic population in Virginia. Would have been great to have a much bigger subset.
NO wants to know, how much of this red swing in New Jersey is due to the Project Veritas, in your opinion?
That's a good question. Probably, some marginal amount. I would have to poll and say how many of you are aware of the Project Veritas video, but I imagine it had some impact. I do. Christie was very successful at using illegal immigration to piss off domestic Hispanic populations, right? And be like, yo, what the hell? What about us? And he was awesome at it. And not only, to obviously not Hispanics, non-Hispanics, but it's definitely a wedge you could drive. It was, I guess, better late than never, but it would have been probably a little bit better if Citarelli had a few more weeks to let that marinate in the electorate. It really would have been. Plus, Citarelli did not. This is one thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, and the media attention just wasn't as much on Virginia. But I don't know that Citarelli hammered that the way Younkin hammered his issues. I'm going to use my pulpit to raise awareness, right? Because people who may not otherwise follow Project Veritas or don't care about alternative media, they'll never see that video until maybe a gubernatorial candidate says, you know what? I will do this on day one. Not just, hey, did you hear Jack Murphy? No. Voters want to know that I am going to do this. And, it may have been a little bit of a misstep, but I am not at all going to criticize Jack Citarelli this morning. I'm not going to say he could have done this better, he could have done that better. I think that is, at this point, wholly inappropriate. What could have been done better is the freaking Republican Party. Yeah. They got to get their stupid fat heads out of there, what. They continue to do this every year. You know why it makes me so angry?
Because it was
They're abandoning people.
Yes.
They're abandoning people. Some Americans are worth paying attention to, and others are not. And that pisses me off, especially since I spent so many years in New Jersey.
Yes.
Those people deserve to be represented too. They deserve to have a choice.
That's why you always say, never give up on any.
You ever see
position.
Democrats give up?
Nope.
You ever look? They're losing and getting killed in rural America right now. But Terry Younkin. Sorry, sorry, Glenn. Sorry,
Glenn.
Terry Mcauliffe went on the stage last night, banging country music, pretending to be Old Dominion. You don't see, they may call them all sorts of names, and put curricula together that essentially tries to eradicate their culture. But he'll still get up on the stage and pretend like he's like Travis Tritt. Who, by the way, sent in a pretty incredible tweet out last night. I'll let you guys go and look at it. I mean, boy, I didn't realize he was so politically... He's a country singer for people who don't know. And he was like, yeah, that's right. The Old Dominion's back, baby.
Jay Patel said, can you ask Rich? I honestly think this story is New Jersey more than Virginia because in New Jersey, Biden's entire policies were on the ballot. And yet, it seems the issue of education was.
Yep, and I'll say this too. Terry Mcauliffe was a known entity. He never was particularly liked, although polls gave him like slight approval rating. Slightly positive approval, maybe 51, 52, 54, and 1. I went back and looked the other day. But he always did have this stigma with him that tied him to the Clintons and kind of like painted him with it made him smell like Joe Biden's pants, I'm serious.
Well, he was meeting
after he met the Pope. And and people that kind of was like an aura. Terry Mcauliffe never hit 50%. So he wasn't, and he already had his chance. Glenn Younkin had a lot of benefited from a lot of media coverage. Jack Citarelli was essentially a nobody. A businessman with no name recognition, very little, who went out, ran a grassroots campaign. I have to agree with him on this. Even though it's a loss, I think Murphy is definitely going to hold this lead. I could be wrong. I'm just saying.
There could be historical history.
Yeah, I think we're at like 75-25 right now. 80-20. Maybe even 90-10. I'm serious. But there were totally different conditions in New Jersey. And voters didn't know who he was. They essentially just walked into the polling place and voted Republican for somebody they barely knew against a known sitting governor. They just said, no, thank you. I'll take an alternative. There's a D next to his name.
Yep.
No, thank you.
We'll pass.
I will take an alternative. And this is a state that just voted, again, 16 points for Joe Biden. And I think you're right to point that out. And in the end, I was telling Laura this morning when we looked. I said, and I even last night mentioned it. New Jersey is swinging harder than Virginia. It's just that Jersey is bluer.
Yes.
So it's got to swing a lot.
But it's still a beautiful sight to see.
It's an absolute nightmare for Democrats. Folks, I can't underscore this enough. They know it. They can continue to pretend if infrastructure is passed, that's going to help them. That is a freaking delusion. First of all, I hate to break it to you. Americans don't support Biden's infrastructure plan. The crappy, phony, bogus polls that show stupid little buzzwords like, do you support paved roads? All right. Do you support bridges that don't collapse? All right. You stupid idiots. They don't support anything in this bill. They don't support anything in this man's agenda. When you tell them what it actually is, they do not support it. And besides, whatever little bit of pro-working family, working American, it's 10 years out. It's not going to hit home before November 2022. It's not going to happen. You're dreaming. You're like the Washington Post, taking hits of acid under the desk with your cubicle.
Nice.
You're delusional. You're on a bad trip.
Time
Didn't
to
anybody
come
tell
down.
you not to take acid when your anxiety level is high? You're on a bad trip. God. And I mean, it's not going to blow over. It's not. At this point, and you know what? My buddy Glenn, I'll actually take his I'll take his request and not say the next part of that,
Yeah.
which would be, say, if I was in that position, I would do this. Now, you know what?
Let's
Stop
continue.
calling white women racist, and maybe I'll give you some advice, you pieces of garbage.
Preach it, baby. So following up with the New Jersey
And my
question.
wife is Hispanic, by the way, so kiss my you-know-what
Yeah.
before I get...
You
Because I
can't
got a
call-
couple of those
Yeah,
before.
you can't call my husband racist, okay? Let
No,
me
I
finish.
just got like, oh, well, you're just defending your wife.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you
You know
not
what
get
the
the
major
memo?
problem with social media is?
They
Everybody
don't
thinks
know.
they know you.
The problem with media, period, is
Yeah.
they don't do their research. Because they would have discovered a long time ago.
I mean, she's obviously part white, and some Hispanics identify as white. But, I mean, she's Puerto Rican and Italian, idiots. She's not exactly the blue-eyed, blonde-haired soccer mom
Nope.
from, like, you know,
Definitely not. Far
from The
that.
Blind Side. All right?
Yes,
Jackasses.
I am no Sandra Bullock.
Oh, my God.
Let's see. So, GOP... If the GOP poured more money into the race, do you think Jack would have won?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do. And I think that if they it's not only more money, he had a great grassroots operation. How he ran that campaign is exactly the kind of campaign that you want to run and have supported by Get Out the Vote operation on the ground. And they didn't do it. They don't, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, what's frustrating for me about New Jersey is that Chris Christie showed them how to win New Jersey. Not only showed them that it's possible, but showed them how to win. Folks, go back and look at Chris Christie's reelection. It was dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about a Republican victory like that. There hadn't been a victory like that anywhere by anyone. He stomped Obama's performance in New Jersey.
I love
Take
how that...
that, Mr. Obama. He
So
did.
favorite.
He just killed it, man. He killed it.
Oh, man, that was good stuff. All right, so Steph P. actually gave us a little information. She said the real story is voting rolls down by 30%. That's the padded margin that they need to cheat in 2020.
Listen, I do want to say this. The importance of organization. And we've had Matt Brainerd on here from Look Ahead America multiple times now since the election. Also talk about, reports that we've both done, research we have both done. But also now Matt has pivoted to grassroots. And Look Ahead America is going to turn into a grassroots army for voter registration. And then it will, right before the midterms, turn into, as best they can, a ground army of election observers. In Virginia, Republicans, Ken Cuccinelli talked about this on Newsmax this morning, and he was one, and somebody brought it up yesterday, and I meant to get into it a little bit more, but it is true. Republicans had an army of volunteers and many more people involved in the official process of counting votes and, overseeing elections, not just overseeing, but being involved in the counting of votes. Republicans in Virginia woke up and said, maybe that old adage is true. It's not who votes, but who counts those votes. And they went out and did this work, folks. And, from the Shenandoah Valley to the West coal mines to the Hampton Roads, like Glenn Younkin said in Virginia, all the way to Northern Virginia, they had people all over the place. And it was very difficult to pull some shenanigans if you were going to try to do it. Now, Republicans tend to get locked out of observing in blue areas like Fairfax and Arlington. You got to do it. The lesson for New Jersey Republicans is that a little bit more not a little bit, a lot more organization would have went a long way. But you start that work now, you build it up. This way, when an opportunity like this happens again, it's enough for you. All right, and you gotta get these guys sue if you gotta get these roles cleaned up.
Yes.
You got to get, because this idea, somebody said, and I love him. I love my buddy Nate the lawyer.
Oh,
And
I
he
was
said,
gonna say.
"How come every time?"
That's right.
No, that's a smear merchant. No,
Yeah.
remember
Nate
that?
the lawyer.
Mama. Yeah, Nate the lawyer said, how come every time Republicans win, it's it was a clean election, and when they lose, it's fraud, and they're gaslighting you, kind of thing. And I said, first of all, Nate, speak to more Republicans, my friend, because they'll tell you there is cheating in Virginia. They just stopped enough of it, and Glenn Younkin won beyond the margin of fraud. All right, that's what Republicans would actually tell you. But the fact of the matter is, there's always cheating in elections. Always. The big lie is that any election, is fortified. What I'm saying right now is what it would require to start to begin to fortify elections. No election is fortified in this country. It never has been. There is always cheating, and the question is never whether there is or is not election fraud. The question is whether it is a significant amount that impacted the results, to the point where the true winner of the contest cannot be determined or is unknown. Like Matt says, that is always been the question we sought to answer from the beginning. Anyone who tells you that they don't cheat in Newark is an effing liar. Anyone who tells you that they don't cheat in Asbury Park is a liar. Anyone who tells you that they don't cheat in Camden is a liar. Mm-hmm. My very first election, I will never forget this. It wasn't even competitive, the state. Yet I'm watching Democrats hand out Lucy's of Newports so they can go. So two Lucy's are single cigarettes sold individually, sometimes at corner stores, but were back then.
Or bars.
But what Democrats were doing, were buying packs of Newports, going to the ghettos in Asbury Park, and giving them 2 cigarettes. Yeah, I'll give you a Lucy to go vote in your cousin's name. Mm-hmm. Well, what about? I'm gonna get caught. No. That poll work is. We know her. She's good. Go. They did it all day for Al Gore, all day long. Where's your cousin? He in jail. What? Good. Fine. Go. All day. This idea that any election is like super, that's the big lie. Mm-hmm. Liz Cheney being a conservative is a big lie. Adam Kinzinger being clean is a big lie. Mm-hmm. All right? Election fraud is not a lie. The question is, how much of it? Is it significant? Did it impact?
And that's why we need people to do their civic duty.
That's right.
And be hawks and watch.
Be involved.
Yes.
Be involved. Because the people of Virginia did that this time. They took it to heart. You know what? When I went to DC at Matt's invitation, I can't remember her name, and I'm sorry if you're a fan now when you watch, but there were these women from Virginia, and they loved it. They loved the state, and they hated what they saw happening to it, and they weren't. These women were fired up. And they were like, no, we are going to win this race. We are going to win. We got this governor's race coming up. We're going to make sure. That's why she was there with her friends. Mm-hmm. They were there with Matt. They were there looking for ways to work with people, to get involved, to make sure that there are enough people on the ground that there isn't a horrible miscarriage of justice, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm like thinking back to her now, and it's people like her
that are doing their civic duty.
And by the way, she was going to be late. Her husband calls. He's like, babe, come on, what's going on? And she's like, oh, I'm here. I'm doing this. I'm at the all right, honey. I know it's important. Do it. I'll handle the kids. It was.
That's teamwork right there. Teamwork. Husband helping wife, civic duty. This is what needs to be done. The laziness. He knew it was important to her and important. Yep, he knew it was important to her and important to the country, and they were making a sacrifice. It was beautiful.
And that's really what it will take, because the complacency of just assuming that because they work for the government or the county or this or that, they're just going to be honest. That's totally foolish. They are the least honest people in this society. I hate to tell you. They're not exactly salt of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Government workers at this point now, state, federal, whatever, they have just become, local, state, or federal, they've just become the most entitled, arrogant people.
Oh.
I mean, let's get real. Have you gone to the DMV in New Jersey? Have you ever been to the Department of Motor Vehicles?
You better spend all day
Have
there.
you been to a Veterans Administration hospital? It was getting better, by the way, under
Yes.
Donald Trump. Like, the tone was different. Tone from the top is real. It's real. They realized they had no choice. You know, and by the way, Donald Trump he passed a bill where, based on performance, you could be fired. A veteran files a complaint about how you talk to them,
Mm-hmm.
you get canned. You know? Now, no, they're right back to being pieces of crap who disrespect the hell out of you. Not everywhere,
Yeah,
but
a majority.
yeah, you
What
know
was
the
that
areas
saying?
I'm talking about.
Come on, that military saying, you have to hurry up to
Hurry up and wait.
Mhm.
Yeah, hurry up and wait. And I'd hate
For
God.
hours.
Now, you know, I don't know how it is or how it used to be, but God, I feel for people who have to use the East Orange Veterans Hospital. It
Mm.
was like the worst example of government workers being biggest pieces of crap.
I had to put them
Not
in their
realizing
place.
they're supposed to be civil servants.
You remember
So rude, not just to me, but everyone.
that?
So incredibly ruled. You know, they had it double good, folks, because they worked in like a ghetto of northern New Jersey where nobody gets fired because, God forbid, you know what'll happen, and also the federal government. So they just completely felt they didn't have to respect you at all.
Mhm.
They spit on you if they could. It's disgusting.
And then the faces of annoyance
I know.
when you walk up just to ask a question. It's like, okay, I
Yeah,
don't even know where
it's
I'm
like-
walking to. How dare I?
You got to the appointment on time. You're sitting there for 30 minutes to an hour. Nobody's come out. You go up and ask the woman, ma'am, is there any way we can find out how much longer this is going to be? I mean, my appointment was at 11:30.
Yeah.
1 second, sir. 1 second. Not even sir. One
No,
second.
Yeah, they didn't call you sir.
I'm like, you just want to.
It's like,
Yeah.
and I sacrificed for
Yeah.
you. It's like,
Talk to me
Who's
like
that?
that again.
no,
You know?
that's when Laura
Yeah.
comes up and
And I'm actually I'm the nice one.
yes, I was the one who straightened out that whole situation. Remember that?
And then I get to Florida and it's totally different, even though it's not like, you know, but it's totally different. And honestly, without a doubt, when Donald Trump was elected, even in
Night and
our
day.
hospital, because it was in a liberal area, they were refusing to put up his portrait.
Yes.
And then I was told the veterans were furious. I remember I walked
Mhm.
into this. I don't want to blow them up because there's a
Yeah.
lot of good people who work there.
Mhm.
No, walk into the lobby where the primary care is, and the emergency room to the left, primary care to the right, and they're fighting. The veterans are fighting with the administrators. And I just was like, yeah, I mean, I could go to social media and tell everybody that you won't put his portrait up, you know.
Mhm.
Eventually they did, though. And then it was like, smile, especially when the VA Accountability Act was passed. There's no doubt. It had an
Then
impact.
they were worried about their jobs.
Yeah, they started worrying about their jobs. Uh-oh.
If
Some
possible.
people did tell me Rumble is, this thing
Yes,
just filed.
I saw that.
It didn't edit
It
the right.
just-
If Rumble didn't work, guys, I will take the video and upload it to Rumble
Mhm.
after this. All right. With that in mind, it is 104.
New Jersey.
Keep an eye out on, locals. I'll be around, on
Yeah.
social and stuff. But
be
Inside the
traveling.
Numbers, I will let you know what's going on Friday with Inside the Numbers. I can't stay gone long, so
Mhm.
I won't be gone long. All right.
And tonight at 7:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you will be with
Tonight?
Frank. You said
Oh, right. Yeah. At 7 on the dot?
7:20.
7:20. At 7:25, I'll be rejoining my buddy Frank at Quite Frankly
And you
at
really have to
Political
go, don't
Orgy
you,
on
Steve?
Twitter. And we will see you. We'll see you then.
Don't you
All
have
the best,
Steve?
folks. All the best.
You-
I don't know. I'm going to not end the broadcast. I'm just going to end it. So,
yeah.
all right.
Don't you
All the
have
best,
Steve?
guys.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you